just saying, can you imagine finding out later you didn't even get traded for a player? You got traded for a fucking copying machine?
How teams fuck up their franchises. Hey yo, what's up? It's your boy Eyeso plays typical YouTube shit. Like and subscribe. Anyways, let's get back to the video. I was gonna have this video be about worst NBA franchises and the mistakes they made. But as I was like compiling like the mistakes that I see a lot of shitty franchises make, I realized it's not just them. Every fucking team makes these very, critical mistakes. Those super shitty ones, though, they just do multiple of them, or they continue to do the same thing over and over. So I realized it was kind of unfair with a lot of these points I wanted to make for me to just single out certain teams. And I'm just going to talk about key factors that can really cripple a team who might otherwise have championship aspirations. So let's get into it. The very first thing that I think, and this one's pretty obvious, but it still needs to be talked about, is a franchise's owner being stingy as fuck. And basically all that comes down to is you'll have a player who they're coming up on a contract extension or they're about to be a free agent and they kind of want a lot of money and they're worth a lot to the team.
But the owner's like, that puts me over the salary cap, and then I'm gonna have to pay, the tax, and it's just gonna be too much.
And don't get me wrong, when you get over the luxury tax, you're paying millions upon millions of dollars. As someone who hasn't even made $20 an hour in their life yet, I can't even fucking imagine. But here's the thing. If you're going to be the owner of any sports franchise, whether it's the NBA or not, that has to be a vanity investment. If you were genuinely trying to invest in a sports team to make a profit as your main focus, that's just shitty, man. And you're doing a disservice to that city. It's just not fair. And you see it all the time. Like the Portland Trailblazers, February 4th, they traded away Norman Powell and Robert Covington for pretty much nothing. Expiring contracts and a second-round pick. And the main reason why they did this was one dude was up for a contract extension and the other dude was about to be making $80 million over the next 4 years, and it would put them over the luxury tax. And I'm assuming the owner didn't want to pay that. Are the Trailblazers going to rebuild? Who knows? All I'm saying is when an owner makes a decision just based off money, it almost is never good for the fucking team. Very, very rarely. I remember there was a time in my early days as a Nuggets fan, and this was when I was like, what the fuck is going on? Where we were trading draft picks just for money. And that is the dumbest thing you can fucking do. Like, don't get me wrong, yeah, having an extra $1 million is cool and all, but when you can get a player, Nikola Jokic was a second-round draft pick. There was a Taco Bell commercial. I know I've said this a million times. I have to keep bringing it up. And he's an MVP. So any player you can get to just get a flyer on, throw him in the G League, send him overseas, it doesn't matter. That is way better than the money you're going to get. Fun fact, back in the day, the 76ers traded Kyle Korver, and the money that they saved, they used to buy a new printer copier. Kyle Korver proceeded to go on and break the record for most consecutive games with a made three-pointer. So, do you really want to be chasing the money? It's just dumb. Front office turnover or turmoil. You see drama where there's a GM who he's sexually harassing an assistant, or Donald Sterling and saying a lot of racist shit. That kind of stuff, it doesn't matter if that's someone who's super behind the scenes. It's just such a huge distraction. And it puts such a mark, a negative mark that is, on that team that does not want to draw players there. No one wants to be in a toxic environment where you don't know who's going to be the boss 2 months from now. It's just no one wants to deal with that. And I was really sad when it happened with the Clippers that it came out that Donald Sterling was super racist, because the Clippers have been dog shit since the dawn of time. They've had more #1 draft picks than any other NBA team ever. And then right around the time when it starts seeming like they're about to be good, it comes out their owner's super fucking racist, treats his players like they're literal property. What the fuck? Set that team back, and I think that's part of the reason why the Clippers curse has kind of continued. And then you have, again, Portland, another team where the GM, it seems like he's very toxic. The Pacers, they were doing well on their way, and it found out that no one liked to be around the GM because he was a tyrant. And it's a bad look, because that's how you really build your culture. Yes, you have to, have the initial team and the right players in play. But if you don't have that backbone, that skeletal core that's going to lead that direction, there's nothing that's going to come of it. And it's just very, very concerning, which leads me in. I ain't even gonna do a break for this. Let me go straight into it. The next biggest issue is, and this goes back to the whole front office issue, but mainly with the GM. GM's panicking when it comes to the trade deadline or in the offseason. And a prime example of this, and I'm going to harp on them because they're kind of the inspiration for a lot of this, the LA Lakers. They panicked because the Lakers got bounced by the Suns last year in the playoffs and everything. And they were like,
this team that won us a championship a year ago, it's not good enough. Let's trade all of our role players and all of our potential assets and just go get another star.
And who do they trade for? Russell Westbrook. Analytics knew, the eye test knew, everyone knew that was a terrible fucking fit. But the GM was like, we only have LeBron for this short window. We got to give him another ring. Let's go for another superstar. And how did that work out? Another time, Warriors, they had Baron Davis. They overpaid him. They paid him like $85 million for 4 years, which at the time was a ridiculous overpay. And he ended up shitting out and he wasn't doing very well. And they were like,
we don't really, we're not fucking with this and whatnot. Let's trade him.
And they ended up trading him to Cleveland, and they threw in a first-round pick, unprotected. It only had a 2.5% chance of being the first-round pick. Guess what? It became the first-round pick. And guess who Cleveland got with that? Kyrie Irving. So, if the Warriors weren't that desperate and weren't trying to trade away this massive contract oversight, they could have had Kyrie. And if Kyrie didn't go to Cleveland, LeBron's probably not coming back. It's a weird domino effect, but that's a whole other story. My whole thing is, and of course, hindsight is 2020. You never really know where these drafts are going to come out. But time and time has come. I think studies have shown out of any trade deadline in the past 20 years, only 3 times has a player that you traded for then helped that team get to a championship that year. Very rarely does a trade deadline trade help you win that year exactly. Usually it helps either bolster your team or bring in a guy who can help later on in the roster. And I'm not saying that's not important. Unless it's a superstar player, which very rarely happens, it's not gonna fucking matter. Norman Powell going to the Clippers isn't gonna fucking determine if they win a championship. Brian Forbes coming to the Nuggets doesn't mean shit other than we might win 3 more games than we were expected to. Yeah, it's fun to speculate over all these trades and whatnot, but we just gotta look at the statistics of it. And they really don't matter as much as we like to hype it up for it to be. I think sometimes GMs, and to be fair, a lot of times it could also just be them trying to save their job. Like, fuck, this team is struggling. We're in this weird place. I need to just make a trade now. And initially it looks great, but at the end of the day, it doesn't actually really move the needle for the team. And in the long term, hurts them. Another player, and I don't know the exact stuff, so I won't go into it entirely, but Portland, the draft pick that they had to get Damian Lillard was not theirs. That was included in some crazy 3-team trade, and they got it and ended up just being a crazy lottery pick, and then they got the best franchise player of their time. So I'm just saying, statistics have shown, value those lower, late-end, first-round, early, second-round draft picks. You never know when you're going to find a diamond in the rough, and those are the ones that matter a lot, because you're going to get them on a ridiculously cheap contract for a long time. Now, this next one, this is the one that hurts my soul the most, and this is what made me realize I couldn't just pin all of this on bad franchises, but the death knell to even some fantastic franchises that have made all of the best correct possible moves, a bad big contract. And all right, I'm gonna be honest, and time will tell if I'm wrong with this, but this is a prime example, the Nuggets. We gave Michael Porter Jr. the Supermax. We gave him $174 million over 6 years, potential to go up higher if he hits certain accolades that he probably won't hit. But still, that's a lot of fucking money. That's almost $30 million a year. And we knew he missed his entire rookie year and half of his next year because of his back injury concern. He was relatively healthy for us, and we took the gamble on it, and you gave him that max, and then he played 9 games into the season before he had to have back surgery. And I don't know, I'm hopeful. I want to be optimistic that he's going to do well. But historically, back surgery is kind of one of the worst surgeries you can have as an athlete, especially a basketball player where your verticality matters a lot. And if you have a player locked in anywhere from 20 to 30 million a year for multiple years, that is a concern. Look at the Wizards with John Wall. He signed a max contract, immediately didn't play 2 years. They had him for 2 whole years. He didn't play. Finally, he was coming back. They traded him to the Rockets. Now the Rockets aren't even playing him. Great for him. Dude's made over $120 million with hardly even picking up a fucking basketball. That's awesome for him. But for any team that takes on that, that's just a death knell. Because that's so much salary that gets taken up. And it's so difficult to trade that until it's on its last year. And it's the one thing that really worries me for the Nuggets. If MPJ can't come back and be the player we need him to be for that contract, we're fucked. We're done. And I get why Denver did it. I'm not blaming them. We don't attract free agents. The best free agent we've ever had was Paul Millsap. And what? He was a 2-time All-Star on, it might have been more, but he was with the Hawks. We don't get big name guys. So I understand them trying to lock up a homegrown guy like that. But if we just have $30 million being eaten up on the books every single year for the next 5 years, Nikola Jokic is 26. You'll be 31 by the time that contract's up. And he's no longer in his prime. So it's something that's very concerning. And this happens with so many teams where you want to roll the dice. You want to believe in it. And it's very risky. And when it pays off, it's great. Prime example, Chris Paul. Chris Paul's known for being injury prone, but the one thing I'll say, and I'll give him credit for it, Chris Paul, I want to say it was in 2018, 2019, he switched over to a vegan diet. And this is not me trying to be pro-vegan. I've never done vegan. I probably never will. But for Chris Paul, it worked very well. He went from consistently having crazy injuries that would debilitate him to, as an old man, he still gets injured and whatnot, but he seems to recover a lot quicker. And so it works for him. But a lot of players, they don't figure out that thing that they need to switch up. For example, a huge thing, and this is something I've tried to explain to a lot of people, Derrick Rose with his, what it's called is biometrics. And that's basically how your body is programmed to land or react when you do things. And basically, Derrick Rose, whenever he dunked, his biometrics were fucking shit. He would come down and he would land on one knee, super hardcore, uneven, unbalanced, just at crazy angles. And it just put a lot of wear and tear on your body that as a hyper athlete, as he was, he could take for the most part. But when you're playing, 82 games a season, not including the playoffs, and on top of it, he had Tom Thibodeau, a coach who plays his players 40 plus minutes regularly, and you're landing on one leg after you explode basically 12 feet in the air and land, it's gonna tear on your body. And eventually it reaches, a stress point that it just fucking breaks. And the difficult thing about that is it's the sort of thing that if it's not corrected early on, like I'm talking high school, maybe your first year of college, you're fucked. There's no untraining that. You've already done 10,000 dunks or layups or whatever in that way. And then to try to then recorrect that and to still do it at, an elite level, that's very difficult, man. I'm just saying, could you imagine right now if someone was like, hey, the way you write, yeah, it's going to give you carpal tunnel. You got to move your finger and do this from now on. And then just consciously do that for the rest of your fucking life. Let me know how well that goes for you. It's going to be difficult. And this is the one that I can't blame a lot on teams. Yes, like I said, it still fits my criteria of how it can fuck a franchise and a team over. But those bad contracts, man. And like I said, hindsight is 20/20. But on the Nuggets end, I can't give him too much of a pass. They knew his medical grade. There was a reason why MPJ fell to us at 14. And it was for these concerns. And the one thing I would counter, the Nuggets, they didn't have to give him that extension. They could have left him for this year. And yeah, they could have risked him, being upset about that. But I would argue if they had waited, he had this injury, they probably could have signed him for $10 million a year. Bro, you just came off back surgery. You didn't play this year. We gave you a chance when every other team passed on you. Do you really want to explore elsewhere? And I bet you MPJ would have signed. Just like Steph Curry back in the day, he kept having knee problems. So the Warriors were like, we don't want to give you too much money. So they only signed him to a 4-year, $44 million. And that's how they were able to have enough money to sign Kevin Durant, was because that they got Steph Curry on a discount because he was still injury prone concerned. And so the Nuggets might have dropped the ball there. Teams giving one player too much power. Prime example, and don't get me wrong, it can work out, but only when it's this caliber of player. But LeBron James, anytime he leaves a team, he leaves a wake of destruction where the team will just be overbloated. Players who are past their primes, they can't do more than be role players on a championship team. So without a championship player, you just can't do shit. And the team is just left in shambles. And that's one of the main reasons why people said LeBron left Miami, is he wanted them to fire the coach and get someone else he liked more and do some other changes. And they were like, no, we're not going to do that. And LeBron didn't like that. And he went back to Cleveland where they knew he would suck his dick. On the flip side, too, you got people like Zion, where the Pelicans, it seems like they're coddling him. They're just like,
Oh, don't worry, get back to shape when you can. Oh, you want to train in Portland? That's fine. Don't worry. Yeah, we'll send our dietitians out there.
It seems like they're just petrified to tell this dude to fucking get in shape and get on the fucking court. And I get it. It's hard when you're a small market team to tell your player to get into shape. But if you don't show some fucking balls, these players will just walk all over you. And again, not to harp too much on the Simmons shit, but that's why I give props to Philly in the sense that they tried to play ball with him and then he acted like a little bitch. And they're like, all right, nah, you can lose. Right now, real quick, I just have to mention this. Ben Simmons has lost $19 million this year. 19 fucking million. I lose $20 and I'm upset. So what the fuck, yo? Another example, Karl Anthony Towns. The Timberwolves, they went through high heaven to get D'Angelo Russell because Karl Anthony Towns was friends with him. They traded Wiggins, which, don't get me wrong, at the time, Wiggins seemed like, he was a real disappointment, overrated player. He's now an all-star starter. And you could argue whether he should be a starter or not, but no one should argue that Wiggins is an all-star. And don't get me wrong, it's not like D'Lo's having a bad season, but he's not nearly as good as Wiggins, and the Timberwolves aren't winning near as much, and D'Lo's pretty injury-prone. His defense has gotten better, but his shot efficiency is fucking god-awful. You should cater to your star to a degree. You don't want to upset your franchise player. That's the guy who brings in the tickets. That's who's going to draw other free agents to you, but it has to be to a degree. And I think the biggest key to combat that is just being transparent. If you just go to the guy and be like, go to Cat, and like, for example, say the Timberwolves, they had an opportunity to trade for James Harden or some shit, but they had to trade D'Lo. If they went to Karl Anthony Towns and they're like, hey man, look, we know D'Lo's your friend, he's your homie, he's done great for our organization, everything, but right now, we are nowhere near contending, and we have an opportunity to get a top 10 player in the league. We think he will fit with you for such and such reasons. How do you feel? Would you be all right if we trade him? And if he still says no, that's difficult. And maybe then you need to question trading him, because it also goes back to that player mentality. You don't want a player who is so concerned about their personal relationships over winning. Because at the end of the day, this is a competitive sport and you need to be focusing on winning. And that goes back to the whole coddling. You can't just be like, oh, let's always make our star player happy. No, sometimes you'll be like, hey, we're going to do something that you're probably not going to like, but this is why we're doing it, and we're giving you a heads up advance. The worst mistake you can do is being like, fuck you, we're doing it anyways, and then you just piss them off. But like, if you let them know and you're upfront and direct with them, and they still get upset, that might be a sign for you. You need to move off of him. But yeah, so I think those are just some 5 fatal flaws that can really fuck over a team, whether they're already a dog shit team or a team that's in the ranks for contending. Any one of those mistakes can crush a team's championship hopes. Some teams, they can overcome them, but usually only one. If you have multiple of them, you're kind of fucked. But anyways, let me know what y'all think. Is there any I missed? Is there any critical mistakes you've noticed from your favorite team or another team that really hindered the franchise for years to come? I'm curious to hear about it. Anyways, I love y'all. This is Eyeso Plays. Good day, gang. Bazooka Shack. I'm out.